Hi, my name is Trinity Gillespie, and today I'm going to be doing a reflection of my research project, Quenching the Market. So, the goal and purpose of this project was to find what marketing strategy was most effective for three water bottle brands, Hydro Flask, Stanley, and Awala, on Instagram. I was hoping that the findings of the study would allow different brands to see which marketing strategy was most effective for them to be engaged with and ultimately result in an increase in sales if they use that marketing strategy. So I picked this research study specifically on water bottles because my mom is obsessed with trends. All my friends will tell you that she's the most trendy person ever. And as water bottle brands like Stanley and Awala became popular, she would buy them, a lot of them, like minimum 5 of them, and we would just have them all over our house. And I was really like, how are these brands getting people to buy so much of their water bottle? It's just a water bottle, like it's essential. And so it was really personal to me to find out how they were getting people to buy this and for it to be popular, so that I could explain to my mom, but also so that I could know it for myself. So ultimately, I looked at the most popular year of each water bottle brand by looking at their most search year through Google Trends and deeming that as their most popular year. Then I would look at their Instagram for that specific year. I would scroll back if it was far, and I would look at all the Instagram posts and sort them based off 4 marketing strategies: celebrity endorsement, brand collaborations, giveaways and contests, and girly or pastel colorways. And if they used any of those elements in the post, or if they used 2, I would put them into that category and record the engagement rate, which I studied as the like count plus the comment count over the follower count for that year, and would record that engagement rate, would average it out for all the posts, and then would compare those elements within the brand, and then I compared that for all 3 brands to see ultimately which marketing strategy resulted in the most likes and comments, engagement for the brand. So I did find that for all 3 brands, contests and giveaways result in the most engagement, which makes sense because a consumer is more likely to interact with a post where first they're needed to. There's normally a list of requirements like this post or comment on this post to be entered into a contest where you could potentially win a free object from the company. And obviously a consumer is more likely to interact with a post where they could potentially win something over a post where they're not going to get anything from it, they're just liking it. So that part of it did make sense. And honestly, when I looked at those results, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But what I didn't expect to find is what is most important within this study, and that is actually the qualitative research, and that focuses a lot on Hydro Flask. So a lot of this is going to be talking about Hydro Flask because Hydro Flask's most popular year was 2019, while both Awala and Stanley's most popular years were 2024 at the time of doing this research. And that I actually did do this research study in 2024, so finding the follower count for that year was pretty easy. I just looked it up on Instagram at the time, but finding the follower count for Hydro Flask was way more difficult because it was not the current year. So I actually used a website called the Wayback Machine to find the follower count of Hydro Flask in 2019, and I used that in order to calculate the engagement. Another drawback I had is that all of Hydro Flask posts during 2019 were actually reposts from different creators. So they would tag different creators within the post. And for Hydro Flask, for Stanley and Awala, I deemed that as a celebrity endorsement because they were tagging a creator. They had a creator feature in their post. But for Hydro Flask, I obviously did not do that because every single post would have been considered a celebrity endorsement, even though they were not. So that is something I did have to adjust to within the studies, but it worked out. And going back to the part where I wasn't expecting the results, again, it's going to be locked in on Hydro Flask. So Hydro Flask became popular in 2019, and in that specific time, 2019, the Visco aesthetic was most popular, VSCO. And what I would describe the Visco aesthetic as is a very environmental focused aesthetic. So a lot of surfing, skateboarding, just caring about the environment. If you remember, save the turtles, recycle your plastic, just environmental awareness. Going back to Hydro Flask, when they were first created, that was a founding part of their company, was environmental awareness, even before 2019. So all of their posts either had something to do with the environment, with mountains, with rock climbing. They collaborated with different environmental activists because that was just something they cared about. That was the founding principle of their brand. So when the Visco aesthetic started trending in 2019, coincidentally, so did Hydro Flask, because people who wanted to be the Visco aesthetic, that's what they cared about. They wanted to fit in, they wanted to be that aesthetic. They would buy Hydro Flask in order to have something that was a reflection of the aesthetic. So, obviously, aesthetics change over time. The Visco aesthetic did go away. People started to find something else to latch onto. And because of that, so did Hydro Flask. Hydro Flask sales decreased dramatically, and it almost felt like they just fell off as a brand. But when I scrolled up on their Instagram, like from 2019 to 2024, I saw that they had to adjust to that. They no longer reflected their founding principles of environmental activism. Most of the posts featured celebrities, different brands, because they had to adjust to the changing times. And though that might seem kind of obvious, that did kind of blow my mind. Brands like Hydro Flask, any brand, cannot simply be themselves. They have to change. They can't be their founding principles. Because at first I was like, that's annoying. Why would you change your founding? Why would I support you if you completely switch your founding principles? I want a brand that's themselves and not afraid to be themselves. But they have to, in order to stay increasing their sales and stay relevant. They have to change with the trends. And honestly, I can't be offended by that, because that reflects consumers. Consumers are constantly changing, constantly evolving, constantly latching on to different trends, and in turns latching on to different brands and different aesthetics. And as that goes away, the brand has to adjust to what is coming up next. And that's just the ebb and flow of popularity of different brands. That honestly did cause me to do a self-reflection, because I support a lot of these brands. I did change with the ebb and flow of trends. I latched onto different things because I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to do what everyone else did, and I didn't want to be weird. I didn't want to be left out. And ultimately, I looked inward a lot from this study and just found that if I was offended that a brand could change, why am I not offended that I'm doing that and I'm not personally being myself? And yeah, that changed a lot of my senior year. I took steps to actually find out who I was, and yeah, this research, it just affected me a lot personally. And then as far as future projects, this is really cool, is that Stanley did a collaboration with the soccer player Lionel Messi, and it was by far the most engaged post out of every different brand, every different marketing strategy. And it actually had me thinking, if I did another study on this sort of topic, I would love to see if the inclusion of athletes within posts or celebrity endorsements specifically caused a higher engagement rate, because it in turn looped in men engagement and male engagement within the post. So I would love to see that. If I did do this project again, I would love to single in on Hydro Flask, because I do think that within the study, Hydro Flask was such a denominator and so different from Owala and Stanley that I could have done a whole study on it individually, just because it was hard to compare when it's so different. But I love the way that I went about the study, and like I said, it caused me to look in it a lot internally. And I also got to find out for other brands that contests and giveaways do result in a ton of engagement. No matter the change in flow of trends, you can always do always post giveaways or contests and still get engaged with as a brand.